War is hell. Not many will argue with that. Yet if we sit down and analyze the very act of war itself, we can clearly identify the action as a large and elaborate game of risk. Generals and commanders are constantly factoring risk into the planning of their combat operations, searching for the proper and acceptable numbers of losses relative to the success of the operation at hand. The bombing mission over Hiroshima was no different, as President Harry Truman contemplated what we can only imagine as very similar thoughts when presented with the option of tactical nuclear strikes. Consequently, on Monday, August 6, 1945, under Truman's executive order, the nuclear weapon Little Boy was dropped on the port city of Hiroshima, Japan, to devastating effect. The sheer power of nuclear energy harnessed in weapon form would catch the whole world off guard, as images like the one presented would litter newspapers across the United States and all over the world. With the successful dropping of both Little Boy and Fat Man, which was detonated over Nagasaki on August 9th, the Imperial Empire of Japan would surrender merely 6 days later, on August 15, 1945. Now the trouble with Hiroshima and Nagasaki lies not with the United States' intentions with the bomb, but rather with the necessity of their use. Should such a catastrophically powerful weapon have been unleashed upon the world? Were there other alternatives that could have spared the 90,000 to 160,000 deaths accrued at Hiroshima? The answer is yes, there was, but just because there was an alternative does not mean that it was inherently better. At the time to the famed nuclear bombings, there was an enormous Allied plan being developed, codenamed Operation Downfall, and was set to undertake a massive invasion of the Japanese homeland, set to begin in October of 1945. Composed of Operation Olympic, set to capture the southern island of Kyushu, and Operation Coronet, planned to invade the Kanto Plain near Tokyo, on the island of Honshu, required an almost unbelievable amount of men and war materials. Furthermore, Japanese geography made the plan obvious to the Japanese armed forces, as they were accurately able to predict the Allies' battle plan and develop their own defensive plan in what would amount to an all-out defense of Kyushu. The casualty predictions for such an invasion were outrageously high, varying depending on the degree to which the Japanese civilians would resist such an invasion, as estimates would run into the millions for Allied casualties and the tens of millions for Japanese casualties. Could such an invasion have led to the end of the costly and atrocious war in the Pacific? Of course, but such an invasion could also produce an obviously superior amount of casualties for both sides. Therefore, in factoring the risk versus reward of using nuclear weapons, Truman came to the conclusion that to drop Little Boy and Fat Man on Hiroshima and Nagasaki was truly the path of least resistance, possibly sparing countless American and Japanese lives in what would amount to be a brutal and hellish mainland invasion of Japan. To Truman, the risk of such an invasion was far greater than the rewards of using atomic weapons, and such risks must be factored into our opinions when asking questions about the necessity of the nuclear bombings at places like Hiroshima.